Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Macron threatens Russia and Putin, but he's not threatening Russia and Putin with his own muscles, balls, and shaft. No. He's threatening Russia and Putin with collective response. So, let me show you how a person who has a big ego is losing it, not the ego, is losing his shit, his marbles, because he is irrelevant. Who made him irrelevant? His boss, Donald Trump. And I'm talking about Macron. New voice of Ukraine. Macron, this guy right here. Hey, that hand is too high. Are you sure you're not doing the Roman salute? Macron pledges collective response if Putin breaks peace deal. My question for Macron, what if you break the peace deal? Then what collective response could be against you? See, these guys think that they are somewhere above everything, any criticism or any judgment. Let me tell you how the West broke its deal, its promise against Russia, and maybe you can write down when Russia broke Russia, not Soviet Union. Be careful, when Russia broke its promise to the West, and see who has more credibility. Now, Macron is not going to threaten Putin and Russia with his own, okay? He's going to threaten with all of us. What if you break it? Let me tell you when France broke its deal with Russia. Last time it happened, not when they froze some of Russia's, they froze some of Russia's assets. No, not that. Not when they said they will not send military aid to Ukraine like tanks or Mirage airplanes or things like this. No, not then. No. No. It's when the French signed the Minsk Agreement 2. It was 2015 when France signed as the country with then the president of France, Mr. Hollande, if I remember correctly. Yes, I do. Which still represents, got France legally bind to a international law. That became international law after they signed that. And France pledged by the treaty, by the document the president of France signed, as the guarantor. So France was the guarantor of the implementation of the Minsk agreements between Ukraine and Russia on Ukraine's side. That is, if Ukraine doesn't implement it, then we are going to collective response. Remember, it was France at that time who did that, and Germany with Miss Angela Merkel. So who broke the promise? Did you hold Ukraine accountable for that? No, you don't. Now, France, I think, is part of NATO to a certain extent, isn't it? Isn't? Okay. Do they have any troops in Romania? In France? I know in Romania, as a fact, they have, because they cried about the conditions the Romanians offered them. So, what's that? So, if you were part of NATO to a certain extent, didn't you, as a member state, observer and then part of NATO, didn't you break your promise, no inch NATO expansion eastwards towards Russia in 1991? Yeah, it was James Baker, then the, Secretary of State of the United States of America, and he said, no NATO expansion. You expanded. You have troops in Romania. So if you break your deal, which you are more likely to break it because you did before, why do you try to scare the Russians, homie? And why don't you just say, you know what, les enfants de la patrie, let's go and fight for the values we uphold, and our rights and our way of living, whatever that is. So this is my question. What if you break the deal? And you're more likely to break the deal than the Russians. I guarantee you that. Now you can tell me when the Russians broke a deal. If you tell me breaking the deal against Ukraine, which is probably the most obvious argument the media operatives dumped on us, it's very easy to debunk that. 1991, no 1 inch expansion of NATO eastward. If Soviet Union, Russia agreed for the unification of Germany. Well, they broke that gentleman agreement by NATO. So they're not gentlemen. The second one, 2008, remember? And I'm going to repeat this until you guys internalize that. 2008, NATO, through the words of the president then of the United States of America, Mr. George W. Bush, yeah, that dyslexic guy who graduated. He was a student in 2 Ivy League schools in the United States of America, in Yale and Harvard. That's why I love Ivy Leagues in the United States of America. If they allow this kind of baboons, and I have some more, Obamas and others, graduating from those, kind of like lose credibility. But hey, that's a different story. And then when he said in Romania in a summit, said 2008, one day Ukraine and Georgia will join NATO. That was an impossibility because in 1994 in Budapest, they, the Americans, the Europeans, and then the Russians and the Ukrainians, what Europeans were then, they signed an agreement with saying, you know what, Ukraine, guaranteeing Ukraine's neutrality. That means you can't be part of any alliance, west, east, north, nothing. So they broke that in 2008 by claiming that. All right, I'll give you another one when these guys lied. They broke it in 2014 when they supported, including Macron, the overthrow of a legitimate, democratically elected government of Viktor Yanukovych in Ukraine. And then immediately they recognized the new usurpers of power through a armed, bloody coup. Immediately they recognized. And then they got Poroshenko, remember, Victoria Nuland talking about Poroshenko, who and fuck the Europeans. Remember when he said that? She said that over the phone with the then ambassador, U.S. ambassador in Kiev. If you don't, it was all over the YouTube then. So my friends, who broke that? Remember, so if you talk about the Russians invading, they had from 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. They had at least 6 years. At least 6 years to do what? For the French people, for the French nation, for the leaders, for les enfants de la patrie. Mr. Macron was supposed to guarantee that there's no more killing in Dombas. He didn't. And the Russians said, you know, our estimates or our calculation is about 10,000 people were killed. Ethnic Russians from the East Ukraine. Non-military population. By the tanks supported by whom? By Kiev. So where were you, Macron, in 2021? You were in power. In 2020, you were in power. Did you do anything about it? No. So it's you who are flimsy. It's you who are not trustworthy. It's you who did not hold a bargain, a deal. Not the Russians. Not the Russians. Tell me about Syria. You want to talk about Syria? You want to talk about Libya? You were involved in all these things. It was NATO after all. So, my friends, these people, like this guy who's out, is out of it because Trump got him out of it. He's talking about that it's collective response. Where was the collective response when you broke your deal? Shut your pie hole, okay? But these are the people who lost. They have a big ego, these guys. When they get in power, it's hard to, and then to being just sidelined like he is by Trump and the Europeans. They're all having a tantrum over there, throw tantrums. Oh my God, what's going on over here? Yeah. No. Macron pledges collective response if Putin breaks peace deal. Like what? Are you guys gonna fight Russia? With what? You got what? 250 nuclear weapons? That's enough, you say. But you're a country like this big. You know what that means? It's a big country, but compared with Russia and its nuclear arsenal, I think about 5 of the Russians, Oreshnik, could fuck you up a big deal. How many do you think you can send from France until it land on the Russian territory? So, collective, you said. Oh, my bad. So we're gonna get in a nuclear war if the Russians break peace deal? What happens when you break it? The Russians and the Americans and everybody is gonna fuck you up? Don't be. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.